So everybody was obsessed with the submersible, the Titanic submersible. It's called the Titan. It's from a company named OceanGate. And I was obsessed with it as well. I was following this stuff very, very closely. And there was a 3 or 4 day period there where everybody was like checking on the news every 10 minutes just to see what was going on. And it turns out my original theory ended up being correct. My theory was I thought it was a catastrophic implosion. And you can go back and watch the video. I said it when nobody knew yet what was going on. And I just thought that was the most straightforward answer, right? I thought it was the most likely thing to happen. Everything else seemed a little bit far-fetched for a variety of reasons. But you guys know the Titan was an utter disaster for a very simple reason. Lack of regulation and hubris and arrogance among the CEO, who was also on the submersible, by the way. And, we went over the details, but they controlled it with a game controller, which in and of itself is not a terrible thing to use like a console controller for it. But apparently the underwater, you should be using something that's actually connected by a wire. You shouldn't be using a signal. So that's a colossal red flag. It was only approved to go down like 1,000 feet and 1,000 meters, and the Titanic is 4,000 meters down. So just a number of things, it just seemed like it was sort of slapped together. And I read a story the other day too that apparently they put one of the propellers on backwards by accident like a year ago or so for a different mission. And when they got to the bottom of the ocean, they tried to move forward and they started going in circles. This is Bush League stuff, man. This is like Looney Tunes if Acme made this submersible. And, James Cameron, who has traveled not just to the Titanic, which he's done about 30 times, but he also traveled to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, which is the lowest portion on Earth, went 3 times deeper than the Titanic. He apparently said as soon as he heard that they lost contact, right, the safety pings weren't coming through, and you can send a text message if they're directly under it. They couldn't text him. He was like, "Oh, I think there was a catastrophic implosion," and there was. The way the thing was made was not really meant for the depths that it was going, and these people perished. And by the way, we did learn that the U.S. government knew 4 days ago that, oh yeah, we heard a loud noise, so it probably imploded, but they didn't say anything, right? And my guess is it's because it was like secret technology that was supposed to be able to detect submarine attacks. And so they probably didn't want anybody to know about it, so they couldn't say anything, but then somebody was a whistleblower or something. That's my guess as to how it all unfolded. But here you have, this is amazing to me because every now and then you get a story which just like the answers are clear, right? You're not going to eliminate hubris and arrogance in human beings. Some people are just arrogant. That's just how it is. So how do you address? Well, the way you address it is through regulation. This thing was totally unregulated. It was experimental. And this does not stop right-wing kooks from coming out of the woodworks to scream their incorrect opinions from the top of their lungs. So here's Glenn Beck and his buddy Stu, I believe his name is, talking about this issue, and this is glorious.
You want to have people who can at least point out to you, here's the problem with that. And then you could say to them, I understand the problem, and screw off. That's okay. Yeah. And that's what these people did.
That's what they did. That's absolutely what they did. It bothers me that the United States government is now saying, should we have more federal regulation?
More submarine laws?
No, I don't think we need more submarine laws. Right. That stops innovation. That just stops it. These guys all signed documents that said, this, and this are happening. I bought, 6 months ago, the Dodge Demon. Okay?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I told you this. Not before. It was in a sales gig. Not before I put the money down. After I put the money down, they said, okay, you have to sign this release. And it was like 3 pages of, we don't recommend you driving this on the street. We don't recommend the tires. We don't recommend that you use the drag racing. This is unfit for driving outside of these. I mean, it was, and I had to initial each paragraph, okay? Dodge Corporation America, not responsible for the loss of your life. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Now, I look at that and I'm like, okay, I'm never going to drive it to where I need the parachute. Okay? Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to, I get it. I get it. These guys would be the ones that would buy that and go, oh, well, I want to use the parachute. Well, if you want to use the parachute and you're not endangering other people who aren't also very well informed, sign that same thing. Hey, good chance you die if you do this. What is the problem?
You can't conquer Everest under these conditions. If the government's going to come in and go crazy with all sorts of restrictions, no one ever does this stuff.
Let's be clear. We are not talking about a complete and utter ban on doing these sorts of adventurous things. Literally nobody's talking about that. Nobody's out there saying, let's ban skydiving. Nobody's out there saying, let's ban people from going to the top of Everest. Nobody's talking about, let's totally ban people going down to see the Titanic. Well, actually, some people are talking about that, but it's not about safety reasons as much as it's, some people are like, it's basically a grave site, let them rest in peace, etc. So it's not the same logic or reasoning people are using. But certainly, I'm not saying those things. You should be allowed to do all those things. I have no problem with it whatsoever. The question here is, should we, by law, have to make it so it's a little more safe? And you know what, guys? You know who was leading the charge, screaming at the top of their lungs at the Ocean Gate CEO? It was the submarine community. It was the submarine community. It was these people who took pride in the fact that for decades and decades and decades, there wasn't an accident. And why is that the case? Because they upheld the highest standards imaginable. They knew the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things. And they tried to enforce that for all the right reasons. We don't want people dying willy-nilly. We're doing something that's dangerous. We're doing something that's high risk. And as a result of that, we better have the proper protocols and procedures and rules and regulations in place to make it so that, I don't know, an innocent 19-year-old kid doesn't die because his idiot dad decided to drag him down there. So, look, the position that they're taking is the mega, uber, super duper libertarian position, which in some ways I'm sympathetic to. Live and let live. You do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anybody else. But that butts up against this idea of, but if we can make it 80% safer through very minor rules and regulations, why would you not do that? Why would you not do that? Right? I can't understand for the life of me. And it's not like, well, they missed a handful of things and that's why this went down. No, they brazenly disregarded every expert who was screaming at them in like 40 different ways. Every time I learn about this submarine, it's another goofy ass thing that you couldn't imagine is possible. Like I said, the propeller being on backwards, using the game controller, literally having like one button inside the sub, using a material which is not really the ideal material, using a shape which was not really the ideal shape. I mean, the list goes on and on. Only approved going down 1,000 meters when they were regularly going 4,000 meters. The like glass thing that they look out of, apparently that thing was also not up to code. Not having a way out after they bolt you in. You need somebody else to come get you out. You can't get out on your own. They had to cancel like a number of previous attempts for a variety of different reasons because things weren't working or there were all these different issues. Well, if these guys want to take their ideology to its logical conclusion, why they cancel, a couple times previously when the conditions weren't right, when there was electrical problems? Hey, freedom, man. Hey, just do whatever you're going to do. No, it's not that much to ask to say, especially because we're talking about tourists too, right? Like, this is regular people who assumed a level of professionalism. What we have here is just corner cutting, right? What we have here is the equivalent of, like, remember that horrible earthquake in Turkey that happened recently? And what happened? Well, there were building codes on the books that, hey, you have to build it to withstand an earthquake. But then a lot of the builders were corrupt and paying under the table these bribes, and they were skirting all the regulations, the safety regulations around the buildings. And so when the earthquake hit, all these buildings were collapsing. They should have been okay. The people who were in the rooms, in the buildings, prefer that those safety regulations were upheld, right? Now, I'm not saying ban making any buildings. What I'm saying is make buildings with safety regulations part and parcel of it. Is it really that much to say you should do the same for these submersibles? It's not. It's not at all. It's not at all. But now I will say there will be a hilarious irony, though, if they act on submersible regulations before they act on, like, better gun safety regulations. To be fair, Biden did get some mild gun reform through. We got some red flag laws, and we got waiting period for people who are like 18 if they buy guns. There's some stuff, right? But Really, we're going to get maybe submersible regulations before we get universal background checks on gun purchases. We're going to get submersible regulations before we, like, take the guns out of the hands of all the criminals or all the people with severe psychological illness. Really? Really? We're going to get submersible regulations before we ban high-capacity magazines. Really? That would be surprising because so many more people are killed by guns than die in submersibles, right? But it's just such an egregious example. Look, hey, at least they're owning it, right? Because the argument from the left is, well, here you go. This is the libertarian paradise that people like Ayn Rand want. You know, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to do what I want. Safety's overrated. We're going to wing it. And it's like you drastically flouted even basic safety procedures, and other submarine people were the ones who were like, you're an idiot. And now they're trying to uphold, hey, it is what it is, and, you know, no innovation comes if you don't do this. Really? No, it's not that there's a lack of innovation. It's that there's hubris and corner cutting, which is needlessly putting everybody's life at risk. That's what it is. So again, you want to go to the top of Everest, you want to jump out of a plane, you want to go to space, you want to go to see the Titanic. God bless, God bless. But there should be some reasonable guardrails. You need referees to come in and say, here are the rules, because if you put that nut or bolt there, everybody's going to die. I think that 19-year-old above the submersible would say, I'll go with that philosophy over the, hey, you signed this thing, bro. You signed the thing and you died. What's the problem? These people are ridiculous. All right, guys, that's the show. I love y'all very much, as you all know. As you all know. Everybody do me a favor. Click like, click subscribe, click that bell icon so you get a notification every single time a video drops. Remember, you can always listen to the full show over on Spotify. If you want to listen to the audio version of the podcast, we post it there all the time. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. I love you all. I will talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.